A is a free soul who inhabits a different person's body each day and tries to live their life normally. When the soulful being wakes up in Justin's body, he falls in love and soon finds out the price of trying to live a life out of the ordinary. One morning, 16-year-old Rhiannon prepares to head off to school while she texts her passive boyfriend Justin. Later in the school's cafeteria, Rhiannon chats with her friend Rebecca, then approaches Justin, who has just entered the hall. She apologizes immediately for sending him too many texts since her boyfriend doesn't like it. Unexpectedly, Justin claims he's at fault for not replying, which his girlfriend finds odd. He tucks her hair behind her ear and confuses her further. Flustered, Rhiannon invites her boyfriend to skip class and go somewhere, so they both run holding hands and into the road. In the car, Rhiannon turns on the sports radio, which she pretends to like since her boyfriend's an athlete, but Justin tells her to switch it to music, which puzzles her, so they happily sing along while they drive to a theme park. The couple also spends their time on a nearby beach and take a stroll. Rhiannon opens her fortune cookie, saying, "You have a nice smile." She says it isn't a fortune, but Justin disagrees. Then, she receives a text from her father, which she ignores, but her boyfriend notices this and asks her about it. She reveals that her father had a breakdown from losing his job years ago, so her mother started working 2 jobs to handle their bills while her unemployed husband remained at home. Justin shares some comforting words and kisses Rhiannon, which takes her by surprise. When he opens his fortune cookie, he receives the same message as hers. When they reach her house, Justin suddenly looks downhearted. He tells her that tomorrow will be different, so Rhiannon cuts him off and kisses him goodbye. Before leaving, she tells him that his mouth tastes better when he doesn't smoke. The next day, a girl named Amy wakes up and sets an alarm for 11 and 11:50 in the evening. Later, Rhiannon sees her boyfriend smoking when she reaches school, completely forgetting what she just told him last night. Then, Amy walks up to her and asks if she could follow Rhiannon around since she's new, to which she agrees. In class, Rhiannon introduces Amy to her friends, Rebecca and Alexander, when she calls Justin, who passes by the room. Her boyfriend is frustrated because of the practice and all the work he must catch up on. Strangely, Justin doesn't remember anything about their time yesterday and assumes he's hungover. Then, Amy interjects and argues with Justin for being unappreciative of his girlfriend. Taken aback, Justin leaves, but not before reminding his girlfriend about his friend Steve's party the following day. Rhiannon defends her boyfriend to Amy, who tells her that she deserves better. Suddenly, Amy tucks her hair behind her ear, which Rhiannon finds weird and leaves. The following day, a boy named Nathan wakes up, searches his location on the map, and sets an alarm for 11 and 11:50 in the evening. Arriving at the party, Justin leaves his girlfriend to hang with his friends. Rhiannon sneakily changes the song playing in the house to catch her boyfriend's attention. However, Justin doesn't recognize the music and proceeds to play with his friends. On the other side of the room, Nathan catches Rhiannon's attention as he dances to the music. Amused, she joins him and sings along. Then, Rhiannon's boyfriend interrupts them, and Nathan introduces himself as Steve's gay cousin. Upon knowing this, Justin's jealousy washes away and goes back to his friends. In a treehouse, Nathan asks Rhiannon what she likes about her boyfriend, and she fumbles over her words. He tucks her hair behind her ear and tells her that she can like other people, but then his alarm goes off. Nathan hastily bids his goodbye, so Rhiannon gives him her number. Justin finds out that Nathan isn't Steve's cousin and chases after him. He throws a rock at Nathan's backseat window as he drives away. The next day, Justin shows his girlfriend the news about Nathan, who passed out beside the road and claims that the devil possessed him. Justin plans to talk to him, but Rhiannon tells him to leave the disturbed boy alone. At lunch, Rhiannon shows Rebecca a text she received from Nathan, who wants to explain the situation. She contemplates on going but decides to go for it. So the following day, she goes to a coffee shop to meet Nathan. While waiting, a woman sits across from her, which confuses Rhiannon. The woman introduces herself as Megan and reveals that she was also Nathan, Amy, and Justin previously for each day. Megan reveals that she is someone who wakes up in a different body every day, with the same age as Rhiannon, but not too far from the last person, and never the same body again. Rhiannon doesn't believe the woman across from her, but Megan continues. Megan adds that she could not explain why and how it happens and that Rhiannon's the first person to hear about it. Disbelieved, Rhiannon grabs her things and is about to leave when Megan says their fortune during her date with Justin. Rhiannon looks back, and Megan reminds her about her troubles with her father and that Justin is not the same person that day. However, Rhiannon finds this impossible and storms away. The next day, Justin startles an agitated Rhiannon and invites her to his place. She ignores this and asks him about what she shared about her father, but her boyfriend remains clueless. Suddenly, Rhiannon receives another text telling her that everything she's heard is true, and they decide to meet again. In a diner, a teenage boy invites her over. He introduces himself as A, but the person's body is named James. However, Rhiannon remains unconvinced and quizzes him about the days they were together, but A is able to answer everything correctly. Still in doubt, she asks him about his parents, but he is unable to give her an answer. He reveals that his memories remain with his consciousness along with the memories of the person's body. Rhiannon finds this sad, but A is able to live with a silver lining as he gets to know a different perspective each day. A shows her his Instagram account, where he uploads a photo of each body he's been into. Despite everything he discloses, Rhiannon says that she needs time to think about it. Later that day, Rhiannon visits A's account and scrolls to her picture with him and Justin's body in the aquarium. She enters her father's room but leaves abruptly the moment he comes in. Then, Rhiannon goes to church and pretends to be a school journalist so that she can talk with Nathan, who agrees to tell her everything. He is convinced that Satan possessed him, but his story checks out with everything that happened in the party. Suddenly, Nathan recognizes her, whom he saw on A's Instagram before he's unable to access it. He asks if she has been possessed too, but she denies it before a pastor leads her outside. At school, Rhiannon notices someone looking at her and decides to follow him. The student's name is Vic, who now turns out to be A. She confronts him about what happened to Nathan, who is convinced that the free soul is Satan. A admits that he passed out by the road when 11:59 strikes, which abruptly ended his day in Nathan's body. Rhiannon expresses her frustration for disclosing her life to a stranger on the day he was Justin. However, A tells her that her boyfriend doesn't care about her at all, which Rhiannon refuses to believe. A confesses his feelings toward her and asks her to give him a chance. In Justin's room, Rhiannon asks her boyfriend about what he likes about their relationship. Justin scrambles for things to say and tells her that he was jealous when she was with Nathan at the party. However, this makes her think about what A said. The next day, Rhiannon borrows her sister's car to meet with A at the library. Arriving, she quickly recognizes the only person her age and sits beside him. He reveals that George, the boy's name, is homeschooled and needs to memorize 50 facts for his mother in only an hour at the library. Rhiannon is curious about A's childhood, so he shares how alienated he feels for having to talk about what will happen the day after. She holds his hand in sympathy and helps him memorize the 50 facts to lighten up the mood. When Rhiannon kisses him goodbye, George's mother catches them and chases her outside. The next morning, A is nervous and excited at the same time as he wakes up in Rhiannon's body. Her mother invites her to come join a work trip in DC, which she gladly accepts. On the ride to school, Jolene, Rhiannon's sister, notices that she cannot contain her smile. Arriving at school, A looks into Rhiannon's locker when Justin sneaks up behind her and kisses her. A wipes off her lips afterward and Justin invites her to his place. A is infuriated and tells him that he doesn't really know what Rhiannon likes at all. Justin is surprised by her sudden outburst, and A walks away. Moments later, she drives back to her house and apologizes to Rhiannon through the mirror. She walks into her father, who paints faces of different people. Surprised by his daughter's presence, he asks her to be his muse. Before time's up, A writes a letter for Rhiannon, where they deeply express their love for her. The next morning, Rhiannon reads the letter and glances at her father's painting of her face on the wall. Finally, Rhiannon musters up the courage to meet Justin at his work and break up with him, who just frowns in disappointment and walks away. Then, A calls and checks up on her. She admits that she feels better, and they decide to meet up. They drive to Rhiannon's uncle's cabin in the woods to spend the weekend. Rhiannon tells A that he should leave a lot of memories and traces for the people he takes over. A worries about her dating him, but somehow, she finds the situation amazing. A few moments later, they kiss each other goodbye. The next day, Rhiannon waits for A in the cabin, but he doesn't return. She asks her mother to pick her up, who who is mad at her for ditching their trip to DC and disappearing for a vacation alone. Rhiannon messages A repeatedly, but he doesn't reply. The day after, A wakes up inside a boy who is about to fly to Hawaii. Alarmed, he runs away from his home and calls Rhiannon to fetch him. The boy's mother chases after her son, but A escapes just in time after Rhiannon smashes her sister's side mirror against a post. Afterward, the two drive back to Rhiannon's house and she expresses her frustration for being left alone yesterday. A tells her that he couldn't contact her because the person he's in was having a lung transplant. Then, the two reconcile and have an intimate moment. A worries about their complicated relationship, but Rhiannon assures him that it'll work out. The next day, Rhiannon apologizes to Jolene about her car and decides to tell her sister everything. Expectedly, Jolene doesn't believe her and tells her not to involve her car with her problems. At school, Rebecca worries for Rhiannon as she discovers that some guy abandoned her in the woods. However, Rhiannon becomes annoyed at her friend's intrusion, which ruins their friendship. On the other hand, A wakes up in a depressed girl's body. She messages Rhiannon about the situation and reveals that the girl's body, Kelsey, plans to end her life. She keeps a notebook where she draws her terrible thoughts. The girl's father is unaware of his daughter's condition, who will return home the next day. Later, Rhiannon goes to Kelsey's house and convinces A to tell someone about Kelsey's thoughts. However, A shares Kelsey's thoughts and refuses to make a significant decision for her. Then, Rhiannon tells A to try their hardest to stay in Kelsey's body for the following day and stay with her through the night. Unbelievably, A manages to remain in Kelsey's body. She tells her father that she needs help and shows him the notebook. Rhiannon heads home, and her father enters her room and tries to talk to her about what she said to Jolene. Instead, Rhiannon asks him about his relationship with her mother, who he claims to love even if she has changed over the years. At school, Steve calls Rhiannon insulting names for being seen with multiple people, but Justin tells his friend to shut up. She ignores them and sees A, who is now in Hannah's body. When they are alone in the girl's room, A tells her that Kelsey is getting the help she needs. The two share their excitement for being able to save Kelsey and for successfully staying in one body. Rhiannon asks her for a date, but Hannah must attend an anniversary with her boyfriend. Later at home, Rhiannon shares her worries about her parents' relationship with her mother and tells her to patch things up even if they have changed. The following morning, A wakes up in Rhiannon's friend Alexander's body. He glances at Alexander's motivational quotes on his board and finds himself inspired. At school, A tells her about how incredible Alexander is as a person. Rhiannon admits that she doesn't know much about her friend. After school, Alexander leads her to the football field, where they play with bubbles and water guns. The pair have fun until evening. Then Rhiannon asks A if he could stay in Alexander's body for another day, but he's unsure. Looking forward, Rhiannon wakes up earlier the next day for school. Luckily, the free spirit manages to stay in Alexander's body. A invites her on a date, but she needs to study, so he tries to stay in the same body once more. Fortunately, A successfully remains Alexander for another day. Meanwhile, Rhiannon's parents' relationship develops once more, and they enjoy a meal together as a family. Then, A manages to stay for the fourth consecutive day but ignores Alexander's mother's calls. They both profess their love that evening, and he invites him inside his house. However, Alexander's family is waiting for him at dinner. A forgets that it is Alexander's birthday, which disappoints his mother. The next day, A is still Alexander and invites Rhiannon to stay at his place. Then, she makes up with Rebecca, who tells her that she supports her friend's relationship with Alexander. That night, A tells her that he shouldn't stay longer in Alexander's body. Rhiannon agrees to go back to the way they were, but A tells her he shouldn't. He wants to give Rhiannon a chance to be with the real Alexander and not hinder a full life ahead of her. A proceeds to tell her all the good qualities of Alexander, but she cuts him off. She still wants to make the relationship work, but A worries about her future. Rhiannon realizes that it would be the final moments together. Nevertheless, they try to make the most of their last night and she reminds him to leave memories wherever he goes. The next morning, A wakes up in Katie's body, who drives away immediately as far as possible. At school, Rhiannon hopes for any sign of A but fails. Then, the real Alexander talks to her, and she sees him as everything A describes him to be. Meanwhile, A uploads a photo on their Instagram, remembering that they will leave traces and make a positive difference as much as they could.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.